For coming. My name's Pierre Bohanna. I was the head prop maker on the full series of Potter films, and fantastic piece as well. So Potter ran for about 10 years, weirdly for myself exactly 10 years, and in that time I was given the opportunity to assemble a team of guys, artisans, engineers, model makers, to facilitate all the making of the props that were required. And you know, we were a little part of the cake of the whole process of providing all the sets and everything in front of the camera that wasn't an actor. It was an amazing experience. You hear it over and over and over. It was an amazing period in my career, and certainly the guys that work with me. And yeah, great opportunity, great chance, great. They don't do it like that already now. So we got a few samples of some of the pieces that we made, and prop making can be different things. It can be something that's very examined, very close to camera. There's a lot of debate about how the piece is made. So there's lots of people who will be involved in the design of an important hamper. So let's take Harry's wand for example. That had to be approved by the director and the producers, David Heyman and David Barron, and obviously Joe and the actor themselves. So really pleasing all of that group of people was, you know, there's lots of making and changing and making and changing. It's not something that just happens very linear. There's lots of editing and lots of changing till you come to the result. And it's a long process. It's a long development. Other times when you're doing sort of mid-ground dressing pieces, then sometimes you're given a free hand, and often what will happen, say, I don't know, let's take example Borgen and Burke's, pardon. You know, we made lots of things where we sort of try this, try that. You know, Stephanie Millen, the set decorator, sort of gave us elements and sort of riffing off ideas. And what you tend to do is you tend to make more stuff that's needed, and then they're able to select and evolve and use the pieces that really assemble well and go together. Another side of it is to do the sort of techniques. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is show something that looks good on the camera. It doesn't necessarily need to be the materials you need to. I mean, looking at bludger back here, the original we'd made was out of wood and plate aluminium, but it's way too heavy. So this is the fiberglass casting. It's hollow. It's got foam inside. It's nice and light. So, but it looks exactly the same as the previous ones. Brooms were a massive part of what we were doing. And they were a real technical challenge. The other thing was that they had to actually be mounted onto a fetch rig and sustain people being thrown around the room with them. So we ended up using titanium armatures and, you know, sort of military grade aluminiums and sort of mad stuff. We went completely over the top to really make sure that they stayed and looked like they had to. So yeah, lots of things like that. Anyway, so if anyone wants to ask any questions, then please do.
Was there anything that you had to use, like you mentioned how they have to be adapted to film, so was there any kind of an odd workaround that you had to do with any particular prop, so that if you saw the prop, you wouldn't realize what was actually used to make it?
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask you just to catch the second half of that.
Did you do any workarounds, like you said, you know, for the movies, they have to be, you know, flexible or durable or whatever, so is there anything that looks one way, but you would be really surprised at what you had to use to make it, or a workaround that you did?
Yeah, more generally, I mentioned before, ones are a good example of where basically we had to make ones that looked exactly like the real one. So we were making an original out of wood, but then they were actually cast in rubber and artwork so that they could be safe. So there was a lot of things were replicated. Also, you tend to not want one thing. one prop is not a good number because often you have 2 units. Sometimes if you've got the risk of things breaking, so you end up doing numbers of things, which means that if something is difficult to make, you try and replicate it by moulding and casting. And I had an unbelievable and sort of probably one of the best in the industry moulding department. They were able to use very, very modern processes and principles to replicate things that often look very old and aged. But that's a big part of what we do is actually multiples and keeping them consistent.
Hi, I have a question for you concerning the upcoming movie Beasts. Did you find, since there's not as much source material for that film as there are for the Harry Potter films, does that make the prop design process easier or more challenging?
It's kind of not my problem. It's really what I receive what's required from by the art department and the script. It is based on the script about what's required, and it's very specific. So you're right. But then the development of the story the script has been developed from the story anyway. So that it's a bigger part of it anyway. It's been made into a film, so that will provide all the bigger work.
Hi, I'm wondering, how does it feel to create something for a movie, and then knowing now that it's such a beloved part of child's life? I mean, I'm here in Orlando, and there's children who just own everything you've made. What's that feel like?
It's indescribable because we're just a group of guys that sat in the leaky old shed for a few years making this stuff and just having a ball. And that's as much as we really looked onto it. I mean, often, this isn't a general film. If you, as a professional working in the film industry, most stuff is quite transient. It tells a story and that's it. So, but it was made of, the whole film was made with great passion. Everybody throughout the film did it, put a lot of heart and soul into it. And so to see the kickback of that this is the first time I've been to Orlando and seen the show, and just the people going, it's unbelievable. One of the reasons, I'd certainly have to say for myself, and I'd say for most of my colleagues, one of the reasons we do this job is that we love making things, and the process of making a thing is one of the most enjoyable aspects of it. Is that however bad your day is, however difficult it's been making a piece, you're eventually judged by the end result. And it can, if you're happy with it, then that's great. But then you see people's reactions from it, and to see the reaction to this level where it's been taken on, and let's say some of the stuff we made 14, 15 years ago now, and to see it still have that resonance is indescribable. It's the biggest compliment in the world.
Right here? Oh, hey, how you doing? Hey. What would you say is your favorite prop to make out of all the ones that you've done? Did somebody just ask that?
Security could get this man in.
Yeah.
It's one of the most difficult questions to answer because it's 10 years work, and it's 10 years work of 30, 40 people. And what I love is the process. Personally, I love the actions, but there's definitely things I'm probably prouder than of not. But the trouble is, whenever I answer it, I walk off stage and think, oh no, that wasn't it. It was it's difficult. Just grabbing at things. One of the ones I remember that I loved, and it's often less and less I get involved by the day-to-day making as the films got bigger and they're denser. But myself and a colleague called Spike Knight, we did the Goblet of Fire, and that was lovely because it was we essentially went out and got a trunk of elm, and 2 of us sat there and we just carved the thing out in just one massive go. It took us about 4 weeks, and it was just so joyful. Just wood is such a beautiful material to work with. So I'm going to stick with that for the next 10-15 seconds, and I'll remember something else.
Hi. Did you ever work closely with the theme park designers, and are there any of your props that can be found here in the parks?
We did, obviously, with Eric Baker as a start off, but with obviously, and a lot of the guys that came over at Leavesden, and while we were still actually working on Deathly Hallows, but Alan Gilmore and a lot of those guys, yeah, very much involved in trying to facilitate and help them with the aid. But just saying, it's obviously the first time I've been to Orlando, so it's the first time I've really had a chance to go around Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade and the park. And you know, we worked really hard. We put so much effort, as I was saying before, into the quality and the love in there. And so you're kind of handing it over to Eric's guys and the prop makers you've got here to do that. And I'm so happy to see that it's almost like we've been split at birth. They've applied just the same amount of energy and love and enjoyment and professional pride into everything they've done. It's phenomenal. The whole park is a phenomenal piece of work. And it's, you know, at the end of the day, we must respect the world, absolutely, and that's, with utter respect. It's a very impressive park.
And you mentioned the world. I mean, it's a fully realized world that is entirely fleshed out. And along with that comes challenges such as, I'm looking at the Death Eater masks, you have a series of items, not just one item that you're creating, not just a one-off. What sort of series of props was provided the most challenge for you? Was it, for instance, the brooms, the Death Eater masks, the wands? What were the sort of series of items that was the most challenging?
In a linear sense, the brooms were interesting because they developed so much from the beginning right to the end of the film, and that was influenced by many things. The physical fact that when we made the first Nimbus 2000, which for Dan when he was 10, 11 years old, 7 years later we make a broom for him, and obviously he's a bigger size and he's a bigger guy. But also that scripturally that would change. Originally it was just kids on the first two, then you get adults on there. And so everything, the brooms got bigger and bigger and bigger, but then technically they got more and more demanding, and they did, as soon as they got confident with the way that they used to rig them as far as the visual effects and the physical effects were concerned, then the demand to make sure that they aesthetically stay sound was there. So they were, from film to film, probably one of the most demanding things, even though at the end of the day, it's a stick to put dust in the corner of the room.
Very loud. To all the aspiring prop makers and cosplayers out there, how does one get a job in Hollywood prop making?
You've just got to work hard. I think you've just got to come with passion, and it's like anything. I think there is a little element of luck, but I think I always say to guys coming to me, and to be honest, also there's quite a formal way of doing it now. There's good college courses. Certainly, I can only really equate to the UK, but I'm sure it's the same here. There's good college courses, and so they get a good grounding and skill. But really, the most important thing when you're starting out is your attitude. That's what you're selling. That's the thing that will give you a career. Because filmmaking, prop making, but also filmmaking is a team scenario. You have to. You can't do it all yourself. It's not so much about you. It's about you incorporating yourself into the system of what you've got to do. And you also get the best benefit, your best kick. There's nothing like coming to the end of a really hard project, and you're exhausted and you're tired. And again, you see your work. You sit in the cinema 12 months later and you see it and you get it and you're proud of it. It's great. There's the returns is wonderful. But you just, I always say to guys, just be tenacious and just have a good attitude, and that will get you through. You just got to keep working at it, because the work is sporadic. At the end of the day, if you're working 9 months of the year, you're doing really well.
Now that you've been with Harry Potter for 8 films, and it makes up a large portion of your portfolio, do you see what you've made across those films influence your other work, like in Edge of Tomorrow and say the upcoming Tarzan film? And what's in your wand?
Absolutely, you've hit a very interesting point. Professionally, in my mind, Potter was so important because it allowed me to set up and investigate systems that wouldn't generally be used on films. We had the time and the backing to be able to develop, and that development moved up over the films. So it set an attitude, certainly for myself, that that's how we approach everything, even up to now. So at the end of the day, people go to see films to see something they haven't seen before, to be impressed with it. You don't. So I always look at it, and we've always got to have a leading edge. We've always got to try and to provide in our way, for our little part, something that's convincing but also novel and impressive. So yeah, it's an absolute cornerstone. And certainly with my team and myself's attitude to how we go about it, you never stand still. You always want to try out new things. It's one of the most, for me, it's one of the most enjoyable parts of what we do. It's lovely seeing to learn all the time. And listen, there's great parallels between America and the UK in their attitude to industry. I think there's a great strength there, and I think we have such a strong industrial base, but a developing stuff. We're not copying, we're leaders. We're always interested, we're always, by our nature, even from 200 years ago. And we should remember that and respect that and use it through our attitude to carry on, definitely. And as far as what's in my wand, I've forgotten, I think it's Dragon Heartstring, I think. Little combination of that with a bit of Phoenix in there as well.
Hi. We just have a question about wands. Obviously, when you first started making them, the information on Pottermore hadn't come out, and all of the different woods that Joe had kind of designated as wand woods. So have you changed the way you make wands through the films, or now working on Fantastic Beasts? And can you tell us what Newt's wand is?
Newt's wand is he's got a little lime in there, and there's some other little elements that are not wood that are part of it. He's got some shell and a little bit of bone in there to sort of replicate in his consideration of animals. Yeah.
Can you share an anecdote about when you presented a prop to a specific actor and what kind of reaction that you got that is particularly close to your heart, the one that you really like sharing?
Yeah, ones are interesting because a lot of the actors, by their nature, they want to have influence and understanding of that. Probably one of the best, certainly with wands, one of the best was Ralph Fiennes and the way that he had a great influence, to be honest, I think, on a lot of the other actors about how they went about using their wand. With his original bone wand, he wanted to use it in a very specific way, and the way it hooks around his back, his little finger, and he rests it basically on his little finger and his forefinger, and he almost balances it all, and it's so clever in the sense that the magic is coming through him, and it's a focal point of his magical power. So he was showing it, and you could see it in the way he expressed it, and it's a great theatrical way of doing it, using it. And of course, when we make it, it's great to see it interpreted and used in that way.
At the panel earlier today, you talked about Eddie's suitcase a little bit. Is there anything you can tell us about any other props from the film? And is there a difference between American props and British props?
A can't tell you anything about HKs. I've played too much out. All I'd say about this and that, what's going to be great about Fantastic Beasts is that you're going to be surprised. You're going to be unbelievably entertained. It's going to be familiar but so different as well. Joe's idea about it is so clever. The setting of the period, the placing of the people within that period, it just makes for a great dynamic and a great story. So, yeah, it's a brilliant. And you're going to have to remind me what the second question was. Oh yes, sorry. I have known, American prop makers, and recently, Eric Baker, who does all the props here, he's come over to the UK and back and forth, and I don't see a difference. I know the guys are very familiar here as they are there, and it's not about the country; it's about the attitude. I think that it's the guys here have got just the same attitude, just the same passion. It's all an opportunity, but we all get up in the morning, go to work as hard as we can, do the best work we can, and go home. So, yeah, no, there's no difference.
So, how did you measure the amount of details you took from the Harry Potter books and put it into a prop, but also adding your own unique creative talent into the prop?
Again, I think it's obviously just by the process of script writing, which I'm not involved in. There's a great refinement. It's a book and a film can be very different. I think that the Steve Close and the directors and David Heyman had a real balancing act in trying to take something like, especially when American Philosopher's Stone was taking that book and not doing anything other than something that's completely taken off the page. But what makes a good book doesn't necessarily make a good film. And I think later on they had to be more filmic with the way that they interpreted the books. But listen, I think the reactions are good for all the films, and it's just a good story. So it was a very difficult thing to pull off in a good way.
Hi, I have a question. Is there any specific prop that you noticed that an actor really wanted to keep? Is there like the wand that they really wanted, or Rupert said that he really wanted to keep the egg? Is there anything that you noticed that all the actors were kind of like, can I keep this?
Well, we're all human, aren't we? But
it's so cool.
The standby prop guys, Barry Wilkinson's guys, had the remit from Roy Butler, the head of UK Warner Bros. Film production, that they had to make sure that he knew the value of it. So, there was a great game of making sure nothing disappeared or was given out. I can vouch for the fact that the guys never let anything disappear. They had to sign it all out in the morning and sign it back in. The security was massive. But that's not to say people weren't keen to have things that they wanted to.
Hi. In a world of cinema props, throughout cinema, what was the one prop that you wish you made that kind of got you into doing the work that you do?
That's a good question. I think it's funny. There was different. The one, I suppose it was more in a filmic sense. One thing I loved as a kid, I loved Bond films. They were always great escapes, great imaginations. I loved the Muppets. It was just, as a kid, you just wanted to be there. You just wanted to be there making it with them, because it looked such fun, and it was so clever. It was great fun. I remember filming it. Certainly the things that I thought that had an influence as far as filmmaking was concerned. I don't know if you guys go. There's a guy in the UK called David Attenborough, and he did wildlife. He does wildlife. He's still alive now. And his first series called Life on Earth. And filmically, it changed television in the UK forever because the quality of what he was doing was phenomenal. And a wildlife program where you're sitting there. I remember as a kid sitting there with my jaw open, just completely sucked in by it. And that's actually good filmmaking. We know we've seen a good film because the first thing we want to do is turn around and go and see it again. But also that you've had this journey, you've had this great journey, and it's yeah. So being part of anything like that, and it's certainly is very motivating.
So as you move about, piggybacking on an earlier question, as you move about the Harry Potter celebration, or you even see fandom out there, what is an item, a prop that you worked on that you were particularly surprised has become so embraced and such a part of fandom in a very physical and maybe collectible sense?
I sort of back to, I was surprised. I mean, obviously people love making wands. I think that wands, again, it's back to that personal thing. What we were saying earlier on is that everybody has a different idea about what a wand should be, which means that everyone has an idea of what their wand should be. And so that's lovely. It's lovely seeing people, and all, you know, the guys that have been in the expo and things like that, just the costumes and everything else, some of the detail is phenomenal. It's great. It's obviously, you know, people have great passion for that. So really, I suppose, as far as other people's interpretation, that's probably the part, the prop that people most like to make. But yeah, I'm always so impressed by people's passion. You know, the passion for this subject and this, you know, what effect it has.
Did you have a prop that was maybe a prop design that was maybe so outlandish that the studio told you to dial it back a little bit?
There was a lot of, yeah, I think even a lot of props. I mean, the thing is, when you make a prop, it's not like it's made and then it's just sent out. A lot of people have to sign it off even before it gets in front of the camera. And there's some sort of quite outlandish. I remember the interior of the Golden Egg in Goblet of Fire. We were doing loads of riffy things about what that was inside. Funny enough, it was an experiment. What the final one, with all the bubbles that were suspended, was actually Adrian Getty, my chief moulder, was mucking around, and it's one of the ones that probably didn't catch fire. I think that they just caught this element, this event. That was one of the things we never made. We could only ever make one of because you couldn't do it again.
I was just wondering, aside from the Voldemort wand, Bellatrix's wand is super interesting, and I was wondering if you had any insight on the thought process that went into that you can share.
Bellatrix wands are interesting because early on, when we made wands, certainly for character wands, they were quite specifically designed for each character. Later on, what we started to tend to do is that we'd make 4 or 5 different wands, different styles, different designs, and then they'd be offered to the actor or actress, and then they'd make a choice or say like that. And as far as Helen was concerned, it was one of the ones that she got off on the set. And it's funny, it was one of the ones I thought it's not one of my favourites, to be honest, but the thing that she riffed off it and got it, and what she loves about it, she said it's like a witch's finger. She loves that curve and that feel. And suddenly it makes greater sense. So it wasn't really made with that end in mind, but its interpretation is fantastic.
All right, we're open for 2 more questions.
You said that you get the stuff from the art people and then try to create it. Is there anything that you've ever gotten that was so intricate and you just looked at it and said there's no way you can make it?
It's never that black or white. I tend to, if you're doing a complicated prop, then certainly myself, I will be involved I'll go and talk things through with the production designer, the art director, and the set decorator, and it will develop. So it doesn't get established. By the time we get an issue drawing properly, we're already confident to make it. So it's, you know, it's like anything. You get loads of ideas thrashed out and suggested for a prop, and that's a debate, and people will come up with it, and then the reasons to do it or not to do it will get plucked out at that stage. So but the thing is, once you start making something, you have to be confident that it's going to work. Sorry, even in the dull word of talking about money, we're not going to spend money on something that, and it's expecting, you know, when we make stuff, it starts getting expensive. You're not going to do that unless you're confident you can do it. That's certainly a responsibility of myself.
I was wondering if there was ever a prop that you had made that you were particularly proud of and put a lot of work into, but that never actually made it into the films, kind of hit the cutting room floor.
Yeah, there's always, it's a good question. I should have to think. I've probably forgotten it because it hurts so much.
Blocked it from memory.
Exactly. Yeah, I have to think about that actually. I can't remember anything off the top of my head. There would have been, definitely. Normally with films, if 70% of what you make gets into the film, then you're doing really well. I have to apologise. I can't recall anything at this very moment, but there was. Again, when I've walked off the stage, I'll remember.
You can get back to me later.
Okay, so that concludes our Q&A session. A huge thank you to Pierre for taking the time to do this for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you.